No wine left.
All
Wine there was.
right. So if
Much was-
you're not on mute, go ahead and put yourself on mute because we have some background noise, but feel free to take yourself off if you have any questions or anything else. But welcome to Consistently Creative Crew's first Wednesday evening of our photo time that we have here every month. Tonight, I am kind of hosting a photo goal setting workshop to kind of get us started for the beginning of the year. And I'm here with my fellow Consistently Creative Crew, Cheryl Bliss, Colleen Day, and I am Kari Schick. So we are getting started with a new year, which is a good time for us to start goals. And we have a lot of people who've been working on their photos and kind of making some progress, maybe not making as much progress as they want. I wanted to start out the year setting up some goals, some accountability to try to help those of you who want to make some more progress on all of this. So when I was thinking about preparing this presentation and conversation, I was thinking about, why do we really set goals? And I thought this quote kind of summed it up, that the trouble with not having a goal is that you can spend your life running up and down the field and never score. So if you don't have a goal in mind and you don't have an idea of where you're going, we can flounder a lot, do a lot of work, but really maybe never get to where we're trying to go. So tonight I want to talk about some photo goal areas and photo process considerations, and those of you who've been with me through some of the previous presentations that we've had on some of the Wednesday nights going back to 2022 and 2023. I've talked about some of these things before, but I'm just going to touch on them. And then I'm going to talk about SMART goals, the acronym SMART, some additional considerations about goals and goal settings and how to try to achieve those goals, as well as then I'm going to pause the recording and we're going to have some discussion and then we'll wrap up. So with photo goal areas and considerations. So as I was thinking about it, I think we can kind of break down our photo areas into kind of 4 different groupings. So areas that you might have goals in could be doing something with your current photos, maybe doing something with your digital photos that are not current. And by current photos, I really mean anything that you're currently taking photos on, be it your camera, be it your phone, be it another device. And digital photos are anything that you don't actually have to convert to a digital format. Then we also have non-digital photos, and those kind of take a different path towards getting them the way you want them. And then many of the people here are scrapbookers, traditional scrapbookers, maybe even digital scrapbookers. And we have our photos there. And most of the time, we have our photos as well as some journaling that tells some of the stories. So our photo goal areas can be broken down into these 4. There may be some other ones, but those I think hit the highlights. So with good photo processes, I consider that to have kind of 4 different categories within that. If you cover these 4 categories, you've probably got a decent photo process, be it organization, backup, family sharing, and legacy. So now if you've already established a really good photo process that takes into account all of these areas, as well as the things that are important to you out of these 4 little considerations, you probably have a good process and you're just going to continue working the process and moving forward. If you haven't established a good photo process, that might be what you start out 2024 working on and trying to get a good photo process. So everybody here is at a different stage in what they're doing, and everybody's at a different stage probably on the different areas that I showed on the previous slide. You may be doing great with current photos, but not doing so great with your non-digital photos, and you may want to prioritize that this year. So everybody's in a different area, in a different place. So I think taking all of these parts into consideration as you're considering what photo goals you want to set for yourself is helpful. So when I think about more specifics about those 4 categories, be it organization, I'm thinking about things like albums, tags, editing, deleting what Tabitha refers to as the 3Ds, deleting duplicates, duds, and does. The duplicates are obvious, duds are photos that aren't really any good, and the does are, why did I even take this photo? So there's a lot of things that you can do in your organization. And on the first pass, you may be doing just deleting. On your second pass, you might be putting into albums. On your third pass, you might be doing editing, or you might be doing it all at once. Again, everybody is different. You have to kind of do what's important to you. So then there's also backup, and I really encourage everybody who's here or listening to the recording to be sure that you're following good 3-2-1 backup practices. And we've talked about that a lot. So you should have 3 copies on 2 different types of media and 1 in a separate location than your other copies are. So that could be forever permanent storage. It could be you have 3 copies that you're copying on external hard drives, and you take 1 and put it in some place outside of your home. In order to do this whole backup, you really need to have a photo home, and it could be forever permanent storage. It could be temporary cloud storage sites, but or e-commerce sites or hard drives. But for all of those, except for forever permanent storage, you really want to have 3 copies maintained at all times in order to ensure that if one copy gets corrupted or is bad or is lost, you still have another copy to fall back on. Then there's family sharing, because we tend to receive and send things to our family and friends. So if you're receiving photos and images from family and friends that you want to keep and you want to integrate into your own photos, you want to be sure that you're incorporating that. And also, most of us have been concerned about leaving a legacy, whether our future generations are going to be able to access and look at our photos. So a question to consider in your photo process is, will future generations be able to access and find them? And have you identified people, place, and time for them? Because a photo without any sort of description might be meaningless to somebody looking at it, 20 years from now, or even 10 years from now. So those are kind of the things that I would think about for your good photo process. So as we're thinking about setting goals, I want to encourage you to look at what's kind of become, I don't know if it's a standard, but it's kind of a way that a lot of people think about goals, and they use this acronym SMART. And I have some additional considerations to just encourage you to think about as we're talking about our goals and how we're going to achieve our goals. So within SMART goals, we want to break down those goals into smaller, manageable tasks. We want to prioritize them, and we want to create a realistic timeline. And then there's a number of other considerations that'll support those, whether you're being consistent and you're reviewing, motivating yourself, accountability, celebrating. We're going to talk about those in more detail in just a bit. So on SMART goal setting, we want to have goals that are specific, that are measurable, or some people use the word memorable. We want them to be achievable. We want them to be relevant. And we want them to be time-bound. And when we're doing all of these things, and we write down a goal, and we go back and we look and assess it and determine, is it specific? Is it time-bound? It helps us to get a very clear and meaningful goal that we're setting. And having a clear goal allows you to focus in on what you really want to do. So this is kind of an image that I pulled off of the internet. So things saying set numbers, being specific is setting real numbers with real deadlines. Don't say, I want more of this, or I want to organize all my photos. That's really not very specific. It may be your ultimate desired goal, but it's very vague. Measurable. Make sure your goal is trackable. If you use buzzwords or things that are not measurable by saying, I want most of my photos organized, or I want most of my photos in albums. Again, that's really hard. It's not very measurable. There's no way to really quantify how many of your photos there are. Attainable. You want to work towards a goal that's challenging, but possible. If you know that you only have an hour a month to work on this, then you don't want to try to say, I'm going to go ahead and I want to organize 40,000 photos, because an hour a month, 12 hours in the year, there's no way you're going to get through 40,000 photos. So you might want to scale down your goal. Being realistic, being honest with yourself, and know what you're capable of doing and assessing that. And if you have some hurdles that you're going to have to overcome, maybe with technology or learning or other time commitments, you want to try to remember that as you're setting your goal. And time bound. Give yourself a deadline. Don't just say, I ultimately want this done in 5 years. That's really not a very good boundary, and it's very vague, and you haven't really broken it down into pieces so you can assess, what you're doing and how you're doing as you make progress going through. So, SMART goal setting. Again, we want it to be specific. We want it to be measurable. We want it to be meaningful. We really want it to be achievable and relevant and time-bound. So some examples of things that I say are goals, and now my question is, are they SMART goals? So feel free to just take yourself off mute. Since I'm sharing my screen, it isn't going to come over to your face. So the first one, I will have all my photos organized, backed up, and edited by December 31st, 2024. Would you consider that is what we would consider specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound? Any thoughts?
For me, it wouldn't be achievable.
It wouldn't be achievable. Yeah. I don't think
either.
I don't think it's very realistic either, really, right? It is time-bound. Is it really specific? All my photos? I don't know that I would say that that's really specific, because all my photos could be everything that's in boxes and on phones and hard drives, etc. How about the second one? Each week, I will spend 1 hour working on my photos.
That's achievable.
That's achievable. Is it specific?
Probably not enough.
Probably not enough. I would agree. On my photos, it really doesn't really say on what photos. What photos, which photos, what am I going to do? Okay, then this next one, I will spend 1 hour per week backing up the photos taken the previous week. And during this time, I will delete my duds. I'll delete unnecessary duplicates. I'll organize the photos using my preferred method. And I will ensure that there are 3 backup copies of these photos, 1 offsite. Does that sound like a SMART goal? Is it specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound? Okay.
Yeah.
How about I will sort and organize 500 photos by the end of the month? Is it specific? Is it measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound? Lynn, you're muted if you're trying to talk to me.
Yeah, it is realistic if depending on what else you have to do.
Well, right,
It could be realistic.
It could be very realistic, right? It is sort of, it's not extremely specific about which photos, but it's fairly specific, right? It's, it's a certain number of photos. How about the last one? I will organize a bunch of photos each week.
I like that, Kari.
Yes, I'm challenged by the a bunch because, you know, sometimes that's actually the way I feel about how to do these things, but
Put
I think
myself
we
back
could
on.
probably say that it's really not a SMART goal. It's really not that specific.
I'll just
it-
mute myself again then.
You're good. You're good. All right. So, setting your goals. So during some of this, what is your big goal? You know, what are you thinking is your goal that you want to work on, that you want to achieve? And then estimate how long you think this might take. Is it a week, a month, a quarter, a year, 2 years? And then how much time will this big goal then take per week? Is that reasonable? And if not, revise the goal or the time frame. If not, we're going to keep on going. So I would like to hopefully pause the recording for a moment and give y'all a chance to write down maybe what the thing is. So can Cheryl or Colleen, one of you ladies, can you pause it? Because I cannot get to that on my screen. All right. Okay, so we took a few moments. People wrote down their big goal, gave some maybe an estimate of how long they think it's going to take, and tried to break that down into some sort of time frame and how long they think it's going to take. Some of it was easy to do, some of it not so easy to do. So the second step, now that you have some kind of goal, I want you to rephrase it and make certain that it truly meets these ideas of a SMART goal. Is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it realistic? And is it time bound? Remember, we looked at some statements that we thought were good SMART goals with our photos, and we looked at some other statements that weren't so good. So take a look at your statement and write something down that you feel is a reasonable SMART goal. All right. So step 3. So now that you've written your SMART goal down, you really want to be sure that you share it with somebody. Okay, so if you keep it quiet, you are less likely, I don't remember the statistics, but it's significantly less likely that you will actually do it. But by sharing it with somebody, you have a higher probability of actually achieving it, which is why accountability and accountability partners in business is a big thing. So think about who you're going to share it with. And it can be me. So then the fourth step, and on the handout, I have a kind of a place for this, for some other considerations. So I'm going to ask you quite a few questions for you to make notes on and for you to think about. Do you have all the tools you need to get started? As of right this minute, do you need to do additional technology purchases? Somebody was talking about external hard drive. Well, maybe they have one. Maybe they don't have one. Do you have the knowledge you need in order to get started? If not, that's something that you want to write down that you know that you need to do. Do you already know the steps that you need to take in order to get started? If not, we might need to have a conversation, you and me, or you and somebody else. So then realistically, can you be consistent on working towards your goal? Do you have a time frame that you can actually set aside to work on it? If you are like me, if I don't schedule the time into my busy life, I will not do it. I need to actually schedule specific time blocks in to work on specific things. Otherwise, they don't tend to happen. Especially something like this, a brand new goal or a brand new habit that I'm trying to incorporate. So can you be consistent? So if you think you can be consistent, great. If not, what will help you stay and be consistent? How will you stay motivated to keep on working? Depending on how frequently you're working, how are you going to prevent yourself from saying, I'm tired of doing this, I'm not going to do it, or I'm just not going to do it today, or I'm not going to work on it this week? How will you keep yourself motivated? What are the kinds of things that'll help you? Is it celebrations? Is it tracking? Is it accountability? What will keep you motivated as you work through? You know yourself best. How are you going to track your progress? How are you going to assess that progress and decide, are you making enough progress, or do you need to step it up a little bit? Or are you doing okay? Or are you going to have to adapt and revise things for like the next quarter or the next month? Who are you going to be accountable to? I really believe that accountability is so important, that you need to be accountable to somebody. And many of you here have purchased Forever Storage and have been working on that. You need to use it, and you need to be accountable for using it and spending the money that you've already invested in that, and making progress with it. So how will you celebrate when you achieve your accomplishments? I think it's really important to give ourselves a pat on the back when we do achieve our goals. I think so many times we just kind of, say, yay, I finished, or we don't even acknowledge it. But I think it's important when we're starting new habits and trying to achieve new goals like this, that we celebrate all of our accomplishments. I want to remind you to review and adjust based on what is or is not working as you go through, and seek support and help when you do need it. So another quote that I found as I was looking through quotes about goals: a goal without a plan is just a wish. So I think those are some hopefully helpful ideas that will be helpful to you as you are looking at working on your goals. So before we pause it for a discussion about what y'all are thinking about, what you're doing, how you're kind of specifying your own goals, I wanted to share my own personal goals, because when I share them with other people, I am more likely to be accountable. So remember, my goals are going to look different than your goals. I already have an established process that works for me. So for some areas, I'm just going to continue doing what I've been doing. And what's most important for me is that they are SMART goals, and that I've paid attention to that acronym, that I do have accountability and I track what I'm working on, and that I do celebrate when I achieve my goals. Those are the things that seem to have been the most important for me when I am trying to add any of these into my existing schedule. So I have specific goals of working on my current photos. So most of you know I host every other Friday morning a Friday photo fun time. And I am going to continue downloading my current photos from Forever and put them into my Historian Vault and tag. And this has worked successfully for me in both 2022 and 2023. I don't even want to acknowledge what happened prior to 2022 because it was a disaster. But that during those 2 hours every other Friday, it's been enough for me to actually keep up and maintain with my current photos. With my digital photos that aren't current, I kind of established towards the end of last year, going through my photos in my Historian Vault and identifying things that I was considering 5 stars or the best of the best, and I put those in my Forever account. And so this year I decided I wanted to go each quarter and go back through one single year. I need to schedule time for this. I haven't scheduled it yet, but that is my goal. So by the end of the year, I want to have 4 additional calendar years of the best photos up in my Forever account. Non-digital photos, I'm going to just skip that and identify that later in the year, because with my scrapbooks, I need to finish scanning my traditional albums. And last year I started by scanning one a week, and I was very successful. I pretty much all year long did one per week, except for weeks when I was out of town or really sick. And I have 26 left to do. So I'm hoping that towards the end of June, beginning of July, I should actually be done, and y'all can hold me accountable for that. And so it isn't going to be until after I finish that that I feel like I might be able to take on looking at my non-digital photos. So I identified on that third point, I'm going to start working on those after all of my traditional scrapbook albums are scanned. So I believe that they're fairly good for the SMART goals. They're specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're realistic, they are time bound. So I'm going to keep on working on those. So now I think we are going to go ahead and pause the recording and discuss what you guys have written down. And for people who are not here live, we'll just have to continue the discussion with you at a future time, but we will come back and wrap up on the recording. So Cheryl, can you go ahead and pause the recording for us? So we just had a great discussion with people's goals and what they were going to do, as well as some tracking and celebration and zeroing in. We have people all along the spectrum, from just starting and needing to develop a plan, as well as people who have an established plan and who are going to try to tackle a few other things or look at some backups. So it was really a great conversation. So if you're watching the recording, I'm sorry that you weren't here, but you can always chat with us at a future time, or send an email, message us on Facebook, and we can set up a time to chat. So the next thing that I had in my presentation was about how can I help you. So I, being Kari, is as far as help you achieve some of your goals. So I can provide some times for you to actually work via Zoom. So I have currently scheduled Zooms every other Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern, and the first Wednesday of the month here with Cheryl and Colleen from 7:30 to 9. But if these times don't work for you due to other commitments or work during the day, let me know. We can definitely work something out, and I'm happy to schedule an additional time, another Zoom time, to actually give you some working time. I find having that scheduled is really helpful. And if I really know that somebody is serious about it and is going to be consistently being able to meet with me on Zoom, I'm happy to schedule that and then offer it to other people. I can also answer, hopefully, some technology questions and assess some ideas of how to do some of these things. I can give you some help on organizing or tagging. I can also help hold you accountable. I will need to know what's best: text, email, Facebook, phone calls, etc. And I really, really want to help you with some sharing and some celebration. So that is something that I want to definitely do as we move forward through all of this. So your call to action, if you did not already do this, is to write down your SMART goal and share it with somebody. Write down some of those additional considerations that I talked about: tools needed, motivation, accountability, tracking, etc. Decide what you're going to do first and when you're going to do it. So identifying what and when is really helpful. Don't just say, I'm going to start, next week, or I'm going to start in February. Give yourself a really good, solid, specific time frame. And then tell me how I can help you meet your goals. So I also have a Google survey, which I'm going to share in the chat in a few moments. But I also want to share this handout that I have. So for those of you who were here, I actually got this goal setting worksheet from another Forever ambassador. She shared it. And I decided it was very nice to be able to use to kind of track things. They have a goal and a couple of action steps and some deadlines. So this was in the PDF that I shared in the chat, or I also emailed it out late today from Consistently Creative Crew's Gmail account. I also had this note on the other parts of the workshop tonight about what a good photo plan process it contains, and some places for you to write down additional tools, how to stay consistent, motivated, accountable, how to track and celebrate achievements, additional notes, and the information on the Google survey. So I really appreciate everybody's time tonight. I'm going to make that handout available on our Facebook page, as well as anybody who requests it via the YouTube video. So I thank everybody here. I've answered all their questions. If there is anything else that you think I should get on the recording, go ahead and speak up. Otherwise, I'm going to say thank you so much for joining me tonight. And Cheryl, Colleen, would you pause the recording?